All right, the first order of business this evening is a public hearing, public forum on the use of monies from the Technology Expandable Trust Fund for the use of 4 iMac computers. For those of you that were here last year during the budgeting process, there were 4 iMacs in the regular general fund. The school board or the budget committee, I'm not sure who did it at that time, decided to remove it and use the trust funds to purchase those 4 iMacs. And I believe the total cost was roughly $5,000 or?
Yeah, 48 to 5.
Okay, to purchase them directly from Apple, and Apple gives an educational discount?
Yeah, 5% education discount.
If anybody has any questions? No? Public? Any questions? Well, I would accept the motion to approve up to $5,000 for the purchase of 4 iMac computers.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Tony. Take a
I'll
second.
second.
Thank you, Erin. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Abstained? And that motion carries. I'd accept the motion to adjourn to the regular scheduled school board meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you,
I'll
Tony.
second.
Second. Thanks, Erin. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the regular minutes of the July 19th, 2017 school board meeting. Could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Tony. Second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Erin. Any corrections, discussion?
I have one correction
Okay.
on the second page under continuing business. Number 1. It says, discuss the biomass committee. It says Aaron Hershey would like to be on the committee, and Tony Drepo and Brian Angelone will serve if there's a need. I did not volunteer to serve if there's a need. So,
Did you volunteer to serve?
no,
Oh.
no, not at all.
So Aaron Hershey would like to be on it,
Yeah.
and Brian?
I can't speak for Brian, but I did not.
Are you on it?
I think I was like automatically on.
Okay. Okay, so just take Tony down.
By default. Okay.
That's all I had.
Any additions?
On this one, too.
All in favor with the correction? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Abstained? And that motion carries. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the non-public minutes of July 19th, 2017. Could I accept the motion to approve the non-public minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Brian. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Erin. Really can't have any discussion, right? Is there, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Abstained? And that motion carries. The approval of the return to public minutes, July 19th, 2017. Accept the motion to approve the return.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, Brian. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Abstained? And that motion carries. Correspondence. Judy?
No
No
correspondence.
correspondence? Okay.
You did receive a legislative summary, but that's in your,
Yeah.
that's within my report,
Okay.
so.
All right. And Deb, Business Administrator's report.
Today, Fran and Billy and I, we went to the annual school lunch conference, getting us ready for the new year. One of the things that we have coming up this year is we have our administrative review, which is every 3 years. Our hot lunch program is audited by the Bureau of Nutrition at the State Department of Ed. So we met our reviewer today and just making preparations. Our review date is actually in April, but we'll be getting a lot of information from them. They look at our free and reduced lunch application, the whole process. They look at all of what we're serving, make sure what's in our recipes and menus meet all of the federal guidelines, because if not, it could mean we don't get our federal reimbursement. So it's pretty, there's a lot that goes into that review.
How much administrative time goes into that as opposed to like cafe services involvement?
We have some, and I mean, we're ultimately responsible for it.
Right.
But, you know, there's things like, in the whole program, like, part of the program is we have to have a wellness policy.
Okay.
Okay, so that's something that we have to do. And in the wellness policy, we have to have a wellness committee. So there's things that we have to do on the school end. Thankfully, Cafe Services does all the menus, the recipes, all of the whole production end of the audit, so, and that's a big piece of it. But all of the free and reduced lunch applications, that end of it, we take care of.
So we're almost treated as like an intermediary to cafe services, kind of, oversight of what they do?
Yeah, but again, we're
So-
ultimately responsible.
Right, well, yeah,
As
well,
they-
the intermediate, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But thankfully, we have them to do that, because I couldn't imagine, you'd have to hire a whole staff just to do
Yeah,
all that documentation.
sure,
That's all I have.
that's all. Anybody else have any questions? Judy, superintendent's report.
Okay, so you do have the legislative summary in your packet. And just a few things. One of the things was the John Stark Day, which is typical. They did make a lot of changes this year, as a matter of fact, they're gonna impact the district, but a couple of them, like John Stark Day was changed from April 25th, which is it's the fourth, typically the fourth Monday in April, and they're moving it to the second Monday in April. The only reason I can think of that they would do that is because the last 2 weeks in April throughout the state, different school districts are on vacation. So they're not able to fulfill what the law is requiring the school districts to do if they're not there. So, which is to let everyone know what John Stark Day is and how it came about and historical information regarding that. We talked about, school record retentions and how to do that and what processes and procedures to follow. Most of them are the same, very slight, change with those. The major change really, I think, is the annual statewide assessment, which was going in this direction a few years ago when people brought up concerns about students being over-assessed. So the Department of Ed, a couple of years ago, started research on what would be the best way to measure and be accountable for progress in academic accountability. And so they changed it a little bit and proposed it to the state board, and hence went into this new law, is that between grades 3 through 8, they will be required, students will be required to take one state assessment in grades 3 through 5, one state assessment 6 through 8, and one state assessment 9 through 12. So, for example, grade 11 that's already taken care of for grade 11 because they will do the college boards.
Yep.
So 9 through 12 is taken care of already. 6 through 8, they won't all be taking the assessment. Only one of those 3 grades will take the state assessment for reading, writing, math, and whatever. As far as the science goes, it did not respond to the science requirement from just grade 4 and grade 8 and grade 11. It did not respond to that. Grades 3 through 5 will be taking a state assessment depending on what grade that is going to be determined. When the students are not taking a state test, they will be taking a local standardized assessment that year. That was already in place, so all the districts within the state already have a local standardized assessment that was required anyway. So we do the NWEA, MAP testing, every year. We do it 3 times a year in the elementary and 2 times in middle school and high school. So that's already covered. The only major change is that the state test, the Smarter Balance, what used to be called Smarter Balance, would be 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. It's not going to be that. It'll be one, at least get 1 grade in each group of grades.
Who chooses that grade? The
They
district?
didn't say, so I don't know if it's going to be the school districts or if the state board is going to do that.
Okay.
I'm not sure. The other thing that has changed, and it would some of the superintendents don't even know about it yet, depending on, because they just followed through with all of the changes in June 30th, and a lot of these meetings happened prior to, so a lot of the educational agencies don't know. Any training for administration throughout the state that happened after June 30th know about it. So, for example, it won't be Smarter Balance anymore. When that went out to bid, Smarter Balance came in too high from what their budget was. So now there's going to be a change in what the state test is, and we don't know what that's going to be. And they have until May to figure it out. So,
Really?
So anyway, all the other changes that were made, if they had any impact on a school board policy, the New Hampshire School Boards Association has already received the changes, obviously, and then what they will do is revise the policies that all of these changes are impacting, and in the fall of this year, they will send out all of the recommended changes to all of the districts, so we may get a pile of policies that we need to just do right away with the tweaking of what they're gonna recommend for changes to cover the liability of the district. But that would be the next step, that's the next step of the process, is to let everybody in the state know what the changes are, so that takes care of that. Again, in the memo, it says that Sean Quinn will be presenting the student data as well as administration, and each group of teachers will be presenting data and explaining competency-based education, what it's going to look like, and whatnot, and we'll be presenting that to the board in the fall.
Is there a, I know we notified the public through certain channels and avenues, but for that specific presentation, could we send something home?
We're gonna be doing the same presentations for open house.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, for each,
Okay.
like last year, we did do that with the middle school, and we had a separate, when we had the open house, there was presentations for the parents for those
Okay.
grades. Middle school was the first group we did it for 2 years ago, and we had quite a turnout when we presented. And then parents set up times to come in and talk with the teachers if they had any questions. So we do it with each of the grades, and that will be done with K through 12, all the different grades at different times
Through the open
within the
house?
month, yes.
Okay. Can we put that in bold on the flyer so that they know?
Oh,
I mean, this is, I
Right.
say that a little bit facetiously, but
Right,
this is
right.
something that a lot of people have interest in.
Right.
And I think, I'm not sure that the open house is maybe the best forum
Maybe
for
a
that
separate,
conversation.
maybe a separate one.
You know, because
Mhm.
there's a lot going on that parents want to get to, but there's also a lot of confusion or education that needs to
Mhm,
happen, so that people have a clear understanding and expectations for the grading system that we're moved to, because it's something that we hear quite a bit.
Mhm. Absolutely. This past summer, teachers in grades K through 12 presented video projects to to a group of administrators, and they had completed a week-long project, and it involved community businesses, and they had to support the community businesses, went and interviewed the business people and in both communities, and had to create a video, marketing video, and they were amazing. They were amazing, and they're going to present to the board these videos. It's amazing, and they're going to present to the staff as well on one of the 4 days at the beginning of the year. They did a fantastic job, and it just correlated with what students can do as activities. Obviously, it may not be that large, but it could very easily be. And it also brought to the forefront the emotional stages students go through for learning, and they had to experience it themselves because it was kind of out of their realm. So it was excellent. They did a great job. I have the walkthrough for Johnson Controls is in process. That did occur this past Thursday, and we should be getting a report shortly. Is that correct?
Soon.
Okay, soon. And again, on the 23rd, which is gonna just, it goes right with, correlates right with the next board meeting. Your next board meeting on August 23rd will have, we'll be talking about biomass and the committee and what the charge of the committee is gonna be. But I think with this, hopefully with this report, it will help the committee know what direction they need to go in. The outside basketball court is, it's coming along. We just had a little bit of a glitch. So what we ended up doing, there was a 55-gallon drum found during construction. So a change in the work order was presented, and it was at $2,400 more than what, it was agreed upon, but it was done, it had to be taken care of, and we
What was
did that.
included, what was included
Can
in
I-
the, oh,
May I
Yeah,
speak?
he can, go ahead, you can clarify.
Basically what it is, we've always had a water problem in that area, and when they found the 55-gallon drum, they had to stop. And, because, you know, you guys see what it is, what was in it, and it turned out to be an old dry well, there's nothing in the drum. But that has always been a low area where ice accumulated, and in the springtime and during the winter when it gets warm, there's about this much water. So we talked about it, and we as a group decided that it was best to put in a 1,200-gallon dry well with stone, and then put a drain there. And this last storm we had was fantastic, no water anywhere. So there's no more standing water in that area.
great,
But that's what the change was, the tank, the installation of the tank, the stone, and all that. Okay?
good, thanks, Mark.
you.
Thanks, Mark. Let's see. And that's it for now. Other things in the memo will be coming up in the
Okay,
agenda.
any other questions? I have a couple questions. With the walkthrough from Johnson Controls, did we discuss, I know we were talking about the windows prior to, and we didn't want to do it, and I know we can't do the windows now anyway, because of school, but did we talk to them and say, if we do move forward with this, will it impact us?
Yes, Mark can talk
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, we went through, we talked about a lot of different things. Basically, he's gonna be putting a report together for you to see.
Okay,
One of the things that really highlighted, got me excited, was the idea of having a small solar farm out back, which would be, you know, able to basically produce power for both, you know, the buildings.
yeah,
And so we'd be at zero within probably 8 or 9 years. But don't quote me, he's gonna do the figures, run the numbers. and he's gonna-
you are on record, and this is being recorded.
That's okay, but just let you know, I have been around before, just ask my wife. So, but we went through, we looked at different possibilities, you know, switching the high school over to propane, switching the elementary over to propane. We're looking at wood boiler and going with the actual figures of what the fuels cost us over the past 3 years to see what's worth it for us
Yeah,
and how to go. At the high school, the biggest thing that he found that we could do, because he thinks the system's running well, I don't wanna say I totally agree with him, but he likes what's going on down there. The only thing you could do is on the intakes for air, he wants to put some preheaters in. So, that's an idea. But as of for the lighting, we're all up to stuff on the lighting. Maybe a few variable drives on the boilers, but he's gotta make it look, you know, we have to be able to make our money back.
yeah,
On
right,
the thing, and when you're talking, you know, 25-year money back, and the equipment's only good for 20 years, it's not a good idea,
yeah.
you know? So we're looking at all angles.
And the windows that we selected or talking about aren't gonna impact
Not gonna
anything that we
impact
may
at all,
be
and
considering?
in fact, it's gonna improve, quite a bit.
Okay.
He would, put the same windows in,
Okay.
because what we have now is, on the report I gave you a while back, but it's 1.5 R value with the windows that are existing, and these windows are gonna be up to 35.
Okay.
That's a big jump.
Yeah.
Plus they're safer and all that other stuff.
You know, safety.
And as far as the committee, the informational committee or gathering committee, I don't know, did Stuart Anderson contact you by any chance? He approached me about an interest in being involved, so
Yeah, okay.
he may or may not contact you, but
Okay.
we talked about it. He was interested, and I think he would be an asset. He has some experience with systems like that, so.
Okay.
Scott, principal's report, thank you.
Just a couple quick things for the board. Summer school summer school kids completed their work on August 3rd. That was after our last board meeting, so we were able to have kids who were completed their summer school through credit recovery through their Plato programming. So you really get some classes either had modified certain aspects of the whole course. We're really happy. We have some modification we want to make to the program for next year, but we're happy with some of the results and some of the work that our kids have done to gain credit back. We have, for this past week, we have sent out mailings for all the families for Lincoln and Woodstock as far as all their first aid forms, new information regarding for cafe services, for insurance purpose. All that stuff has been mailed out this past week, so we're really happy to kind of get that out. So parents should be getting that in the mail anytime now for Lincoln and Woodstock to get that out. I do want to, on top of that, kind of
really praise the office staff, both Brenda Vance and Billy Barnett, for their work. I mean, that's a considerable amount of work to all of a sudden, you know, there's, that kind of comes together really quickly. They did a lot of work to kind of get that out in a timely fashion, especially with school starting as quickly as it is.
It's quite a packet, I got mine today.
It is,
Yeah.
it is quite of a big thing, and there's some good reading for you there, Mr. Manning. Also just want to, you know, recognize Mark Hood and his crew for the work they've been doing over in our building. If you walk around, you know, the amount of progress they've made in the building, and I say this now because next time we see, you know, the board meets, teachers will have reported. We'll be very close to getting kids back in the building. They're already starting to trickle in as things are starting to pick up. They've done a tremendous job getting our facilities ready to go for the start of school. So I want to thank him for that and his crew. Finally, you know, kind of going along that theme, our fall athletic sports for high school begin on Monday. So we are quickly rounding the corner and getting going. So when you drive by come Monday, you'll see boys varsity and girls varsity soccer kicking off their respective seasons.
Great.
So and that's it.
Thanks.
Questions? Committee reports. Policy, you guys met tonight?
We met tonight, and we went over, you know, the fundraising policy and the senior class trip policy, and, you know, started working out ideas of how that should look. We're gonna work on a draft for next time to bring them across the board and get input to what we've talked about.
All right, facilities committee did not meet, and I don't have anything other than, thanks for the update on the, is there a completion date?
This
Targeted?
Friday, they're supposed to come in
Nice.
with the asphalt.
It looks good.
Did
It's
a
gonna be a
very
good
nice
space,
job.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
We have some kids who were pretty antsy to get on that.
I
So,
know.
well, I was driving by and I saw a little kid
Yesterday.
running across it. I beat at him from Main Street, you know, but I don't think he saw me.
They're getting close to wanting to get on that thing, so.
Yeah. Okay. Did any other committees meet since the last meeting?
You bet.
I'll work on that.
And Matt, on the after committee reports, we did have a letter C for senior class trip for the seniors to be presenting. However, that it's not gonna occur at this meeting, it
Okay.
will occur at the next one.
All right, Trey, cell phone use, educational focus. You're on.
Yes. How's everybody tonight? I basically just wanted to address some of the concerns that have been raised, not only recently as we go into the new year, but towards the tail end of last year regarding student cell phone usage and the impact that it has on the overall information network here at the buildings at the campus. We discovered, and you know, through the data metrics and everything in terms of the internet usage that I can monitor, or was able to monitor at that time, that there was excessive use of our open Wi-Fi network by student devices. It was hard to pinpoint exactly what the focus of that use was due to the intended masking of their activities. And by that I mean there's apps for your cell phone or for your laptops or whatever that create a virtual private network for your web traffic, which means it's fully encrypted and can only be inspected with, excuse me, a pretty solid piece of hardware that we now have, and we're enacting that capability coming into next year. So really, I think the crux of the argument at that time was, you know, all this use that's unaccounted for, how can we deem it to be educational focused? Is that under the current cell phone usage policy states that we must, or the students must use them for educational purposes only, and you know, it falls underneath of that general digital citizenship responsibility code that we have here at the school. It's extremely comprehensive, the policy, in terms of what should be done, what should not be done with the open network by the students. Like I said, and as we tailed off of last year, that became known to the public in a board meeting such as this. The word got out rather quickly to the student body that this was a large issue that we were discussing, policy-wise, you know, just the overall picture of the use of these devices. And, very quickly, within a matter of, a week of that being out there, the use of, or no, I wouldn't say the use of these devices declined, the obscured use of these devices had declined. I was able to put some extra filters and blocks into the system that disallowed all traffic that was not able to be inspected. But as we all know, kids' information moves quick, the internet is what it is, and they quickly figured out ways around the blocks I put in. That was with the old system, and I say that very generally. So over the course of this summer, we're replacing these key pieces of hardware that we can use to break into this traffic, filter it, and then block objectionable content, time-wasting sites such as Netflix and Facebook and Instagram and all the things that they have been using, whether it be peer-to-peer communication or instant messaging, direct instant messaging, which, as you know, can kind of fall into a gray area in terms of liability and things that we need to be aware of. So I am very happy to say that as we progressed this summer, I was able to create a system that is going to allow us to not only, like I said, break into that traffic and filter it more effectively, but hold, whatever device is, creating that situation accountable and the user of that device. And by that I mean, I don't know if any of you guys got on the Wi-Fi when you got in here tonight, but it brings up an acceptable use policy. So that's stage one. You have to agree to acceptable use policy here at the school. So that's happened. That's kind of phase one. Phase two, when the students return, they're going to agree to the acceptable use policy, and then they'll have to physically register their device with our system that will allow me to tie it to an actual user and track everything that much more efficiently. On top of that, there was another large concern that our network was being impacted, the actual educational side of our network is being impacted by this extra data usage. Again, with this summer's project, has excelled very quickly. With the new cabling in the big building, we were able to run fiber optic backbones to all the key sites, and by that I mean the network stacks and everything that we've been replacing, new hardware, to speed up that network tenfold. So all the information that's within our school network, as in desktop computers for teachers, the computer lab desktops, the Chromebooks that the students use, they have been prioritized above all the traffic and will be much more effective in using not only the internet but the internal services as in our file servers and our print services and all that stuff. So that being said, I think we're making really good headway to not having the use of these devices be an impact on the actual education of our kids. I feel that, coupled with an extra awareness from our staff after last year, there's been a lot of key teachers that have kind of really stepped up and made it aware, not only to the kids but other staff members, that this is an issue and it's continued to be an issue. And I think that's a big reason why we saw the drop off at the end of the year also in the extra use. So I think, that being said, we're going to definitely continue the training, the information, the awareness aspect of having the staff involved to enforce the policy, and not only enforce the policy as it stands, but be able to, like I said before, hold whoever's offending accountable for the impact. And I personally feel that the personal electronic devices are useful for students to have and use within our environment. And our policy, I believe, is solid in terms of that. It just took a little while for our technology to catch up with the policy, if that makes sense. I am very confident also that we're going to have a much safer environment in terms of bullying and whatever kind of that activity takes place behind the scenes that we're absolutely not privy to. Whether they're using their device or not, I think we're going to make a big impact on curtailing that liability aspect of the original issue that was raised. So, that being said, I'm very confident going forward that we're doing the right things, and I think that, teachers being involved and being aware is going to help tremendously. Because I don't want to tie anybody's hands. That's the last thing that technology wants to do, is prevent you from doing something. The whole point of technology is to make things easier, to make things more accessible, to open up, more doors, so to speak, for our kids. So I think ultimately we're going in a good direction. And, if there's any more discussion in terms of, concerns, that we can address those concerns with training, teacher training, and again, reinforcing the digital citizenship aspect and being a responsible, student in those regards. But that's why I want to make the point for sure that there was an improvement, tangible improvement, from when the issue was first raised. And originally the issue was raised by a teacher in a technology committee meeting in reference to their inability to perform certain things online during certain times of the day. So as I looked into the data, it was very easy to spot that a lot of these times of the day he was referring to were related to open times in the multipurpose room or study hall periods that coincided in certain areas of the building. So going back to my statement in regards to the recabling, those issues will be alleviated just by way of new cables. Just the congestion. If you remember the justification for the cabling project, we were moving, through a straw, essentially, trying to push all this data through a straw. Well, now we have a nice 2-inch PVC pipe to push it through. So I think that will alleviate, a lot of that concern on it, as far as the teachers and their ability to use their equipment. So that's kind of the crux of it. Is there any questions in regards to the usage or the, Tony?
First question. So when you're monitoring the data of this usage, are you seeing it? You're seeing it throughout the different times of the day, correct? Because you're saying there's spikes here and there. Because our policy only allows them to be using their cell phones, unless it's under the guidance of a teacher for educational purposes. They're only supposed to be using during break and lunch. You're not supposed to be using in study halls. So, and you said that you've seen that curve as word got out.
Yes.
But again, that's strictly on the Wi-Fi. I mean, there's no way to control what they're doing with their devices if they're using their own cellular data.
That's correct. Yeah, we unfortunately, we have no way to look into that side of their data, because as everyone knows, if your phone has Wi-Fi or it has cell data, which, I'm not the NSA, so I don't have that capability.
No, and that's not your job, and you spend probably a lot of manpower hours trying to keep these, our student population from breaking policy with all this, as far as keeping up with all the systems that they're using.
Yeah, there's absolutely, and again, referring to my currently as the technology, grows or evolves rather, you got to keep up with the threats. And so all the obscuring the traffic, that's a threat, because I don't know what that traffic is.
Right.
That could be malware, viruses, anything that you can think of could come through that pipe without us knowing it, if they're trying to obscure their usage. But yeah, absolutely, you're always going to run that risk of what happens during the other time.
I've got several other points, but I don't have any more questions for Trey. Anybody's got a question? Trey?
Just a clarification, anybody that turns the device on here trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, no matter who they are gonna have to sign off on and put their credentials into the system?
Well, for students, we're going to enact a credential system for that. For other visitors, for any visitor that needs Wi-Fi, there'll be another open network
Like a guest network?
Guest network,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. That'll still have the acceptable use policy to kind of put that, general protection umbrella for our overall site.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely not gonna cut off access to the rest of the world. As you know, anyway, we have a lot of visitors to the school, contractors and things that still need that access. So it'll be, to get the year started,
Yeah.
it'll take a little bit of work
Clunky,
from everyone,
yeah.
I think, involved to make sure that A, these devices are recognized, and B, that these devices are registered and, tied to a student account. That is my goal.
Matt, could I ask
Yeah.
a question? There was one, a couple years ago, there was a situation where kids were able to access different programs or whatever out there. And you were able, and I may not be using the right words, but you were able to put a block, you called the company, and they could put a block around the school.
A
you know,
geo block, a
a
geo
geo-
fence rather,
Okay.
yeah. That was, I'm trying to think what the name of that that messaging app was.
I can't remember.
But it was basically a locally based, hey, who's in the area, and it tie a, and it would just work in your general, within your town limits, or however you would, want to be part of whatever community locally. But yes, I was able to get in contact with the developer of that app, and it was not uncommon, for me to, okay, we'll throw it on, because it was definitely something that, but that not only, that addresses Tony's issue, and that did address the sale data version,
Right.
or sale data.
That was probably Yik Yak.
I think it was Yik Yak,
Was it
yeah,
Yik
yeah.
Yak?
Yeah, that was the most dangerous one out there.
That's the one, yes.
Anonymous.
And that's what the anonymous factor is really what, you gotta think about here, and that's the risk involved. Anything anonymous or obscured, could be dangerous on many levels. So I really, like I said, I feel like with the education and the training for teachers to recognize, and, not that their plates aren't full enough already, but there's a lot of apps and a lot of things that they can use with their class interactively. And like I said, I don't want to stop that from happening. I just want to make sure that, the use is, is proper and per our policy.
Any other questions? I know you had some, I just had a couple points I wanted to make too, but you can.
Okay, I don't know if anybody else had questions or try.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Trey.
Nice job, Trey.
Trey,
Thank
a lot of
you.
good points there. So this all started because I sat in that technology committee meeting with Trey, and a teacher did point out the fact that our network was being affected by, Trey pointed out it was being affected by the overusage of cell phones.
It's one of many factors.
Sure, yeah. Which raised a concern for me as far as the technology piece from a budget standpoint. As a school board, when we're pouring a lot of money into technology for Chromebooks and other devices to put this technology in all our students' hands, and then for them to turn around and just be using their cell phones instead. And some teachers will come in and argue, well, it's just easier for them to go to Google on their phone and open up a Chromebook. So the flip side of that is, then should we continue to pour money into this technology if they're just going to bring their own in and expect to use it? The biggest thing for me is I sat on the committee that kind of developed this policy that was piloted first and has been in place for 2 years now, and I was fully against it, of allowing so much cell phone use in our building, solely for the sake of the safety concern and privacy concerns of our students and our staff. People say, okay, well, they're not going to be making calls. This is a dangerous device because people have cameras, people have video cameras on them. That's what they're using them for. That's what they're doing. I can almost guarantee you 80% of the time when they're working around our network, it's to Snapchat with each other. Snapchat, take a picture, take a video, send it to people, it disappears, you have no record of what happened there. It's a big component of cyberbullying right now. And I think we open ourselves up to a lot of that by allowing them to have so much access to their cell phones during the day. And yeah, we have a policy in place, and one of the things that got me on board, we're kind of leaning in that direction, being open-minded of having the policy in its current iteration, was we were going to teach responsible use. And I think the 2-year period has shown that a lot of our students haven't learned responsible use. It opens up a whole can of worms of questions, should we really be putting that on our staff to teach them responsible use of cell phones? Is that what we want to be using educational time for when they're here from 7:30 to 2:30? I think as the way the cell phone policy stands now, I don't think we're going to change it right away. I think it's, I guess, worth giving another try to see if it can be implemented correctly. We say it's a failure of our students who are breaking policy and they're getting the workarounds. But they can't do that unless they have the device in their hand, unless they have the opportunities to do that, and they're not being, they don't have the oversight. And everybody knows, my spouse is a teacher, I'm always pro-teacher, I'm always going to bat for teachers, but I feel like we're not getting everybody on board with this, staff-wise, to implement this policy. And, you know, that's part of the kind of contract, part of the, you know, the staff ethics policy we passed last week, or re-voted back in, is they're there to help implement our policies. And you end up with some staff that do and some staff that don't. You know, and then they become, the ones that don't become a little more popular, because then the kids can do what they want, and then the ones that want to institute the policy get a little more lax sometimes, because now it all falls on them when the kids are walking down the hall on their phones, past several staff members, and one staff member has to be the one to talk up all the time. Like I said, it all boils down to me is the safety and privacy. I think those are huge, huge issues, and nothing major has happened here yet. There's many major events happening within our world, in our country, in our school systems, and all you have to do is just Google it. It's all over the place. You know, we worry about the security of our building, and about, you know, a tragic event happening in our building, you know, from someone coming outside, and the secureness of our building. But this is, to me, a bigger problem, a bigger concern. And, you know, one of the things I suggested last year, as Trey pointed out, the awareness of the staff is paramount to this. And I think it needs to be treated with that amount of seriousness, that they need to know. Yeah, it's great to use them as, you know, devices and teach them responsible use, or use them as a new piece of technology. But we need to be fully aware of the dangers of it as well. The teachers need to be fully aware. Anybody who's allowing someone to open up this phone, because all it takes is a picture or a video taken out of context when somebody's not looking, and it opens up not only safety and privacy issues, you know, potential litigation for the district, that we should be doing whatever we can to curtail and avoid. So I think, you know, some of the impetus really needs to be put on everybody jumping on board with instituting our policy as it stands. And as I say, last year when we talked about this, I recommended maybe during in-service, we should be really reiterating this, or having someone speak to the dangers. We've had people in to speak to the dangers to the students about, you know, using these in cyberbullying, but you know, if we're going to put it on the teachers to being the oversight or helping us implement this, we got to find a way to make it really, really paramount to them how important it is, because it's scary. And, you know, on that note, there's a couple other things I would like to discuss here with the school board that relates to this, that needs to be done in non-public, because of, you know, I don't want to reveal any people that it's affected, but there's 2 incidents I know of in our past school year that some people may be aware of, some won't be, and that's just what I know, which is very little. Who knows what else is going on out there?
Anything else? Just a couple things, Trey. Thanks for the presentation. It was very informative. I think out of everything I heard, I think what had the most impact on me was that when the word got around the community that people were watching or taking notice of some of the stuff, that the students actually decided to self-police themselves a little bit, and you know, said, okay, they're on to us, we need to tone it down, which I think is signs of being a kid, but also, you know, taking some responsibility and accountability, because they know on the other side of that is we might not have them at all if we continue this. So I think that was really good to hear, that the students themselves made a you know, a thoughtful decision as a community that we're gonna knock some of this stuff off. The other thing is that, you know, cell phones, whether we like them or not, and I know we can restrict them and put restrictions and filters and do as much as we can, but I think they're gonna be a part of our culture for forever. I mean, and they're gonna be more advanced, it's gonna get more advanced, more difficult to keep up with, but I think we need to find ways to, like Tony said, to make sure that, you know, that there's parameters in place, but also allow that the opportunity is there for some students to use them. For some students, it may be the only computer-type device that they have access to at any point. And, you know, and I know they can go around it all with data and that sort of thing, but I think taking another chance and letting the kids decide how they want this to go is the right thing to do, so.
I agree.
That's just my standpoint. But there's certainly dangers with it. I mean, we see them all the time on the news or wherever, but, you know, that's not gonna go away.
And I think because technology is such a big thing and constantly evolving thing, that maybe it is an educational thing to teach that responsible use, you know? Maybe that is our
Yeah,
responsibility.
and to the staff, you know, because it's not gonna go away. I mean,
Right,
it's,
that is part of the standards
Mhm.
anyway, so that is part of the, you know, the evidences that they have to run.
you know, and not all teachers are gonna be the same. I mean, cell phones can be far more dangerous than some of the things that we dealt with in school, but there's always gonna be that teachers that it's a little bit more lenient, that kids are gonna flock to because they get away with a little more. It's, you know, that's the nature of the thing, and that's the nature of kids. You know, they are still kids. So we gotta just be on our toes, and thank you. It's great to know that the system's up and running, and now our bandwidth is, you know.
Yeah, everything, actually, today they wrapped it up, came in and tested all the fiber optic backbones. So yeah, we're good to go. I was gonna put all our new gear into the rack and install the plug-in, and we're there.
Nice.
I do think, for the board, that the amount of work that Trey has put in over the course of the summer, I mean, the amount of, that he's overseeing, the amount of cabling that went into the building that they were running was considerable. So he just, you know, he did a really nice job, set it and ready to go.
Thanks.
I have a quick question for Trey, unrelated, but are you working on the website at the moment?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
We
why.
are this close.
I went to look something up today and I said you must be instituting a new.
It's, yeah, we're in that, there's a 2-week window where our previous contract expired, and they said, well, we'll keep it up for this long, and then you have to be off by this, and then,
Okay.
so we're coming right up on that date, and we're gonna have a successful launch.
Always something, Trey.
Yeah,
It is.
Always something.
I think it's gonna be exciting to have the new website, I think, you know.
I am very excited about it. It's gonna present a lot of more opportunities for communication between the community, the parents, and staff.
Yeah,
It's a whole platform.
Yeah.
It's way more than the website, so,
yeah, there's a lot of capabilities there and it's a lot more user-friendly.
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll be rolling out these extra, features and capabilities as we grow into the year. The site itself is going to be obviously a continuous project. The challenge right now, I think, is going to be content. The old site just really had kind of the basics on there, so just kind of moved it over to the new one, and now it's just gonna be a matter of preference and, we're gonna have the opportunity to put so much more out there.
Right.
So I'm hoping to have involvement from everyone, and there'll be more communication in regards to that as we move forward.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else for Trey, anybody, before we move on? All right. Staff nominations, recommendations, and resignations.
Yes, I have 3, so you may want to do them separately. I do have a notification of a staff retirement coming up as of June 30th, 2018. It's Richard Baker. You also have a recommendation for Kinsley Nickel for the librarian assistant. And Cynthia Savoy, custodian. Those are the 3.
Anybody have any questions? Any of that? Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the retirement of Richard Baker effective June 30th, 2018. Congratulations.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Tony. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Aaron. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Abstain? That motion carries. I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of Kinsley Nickel for librarian assistant.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Tony. Second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Aaron. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Abstain? And that motion carries. And I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of Cynthia Savoy, custodian.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Aaron. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Lindsay.
My name's Jen.
I'm so sorry.
You weakens.
My apologies.
It's okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Abstain?
Yeah.
Everything was going so well. Jeez, I'm embarrassed. Yeah, where is Vance? Any new business?
No, I haven't.
No. Continuing business? No student, staff?
I have something from Carol Smith. She says the MHS library renovation is coming along nicely, and she'd like to thank the board members for supporting the project, Mark Hood and his men for assembling the new furniture and disassembling parts of the circulation desks and computer stations for use elsewhere, and Trey Aldridge for his assistance in the planning and work with technology in the area. And she hopes everyone will stop by the library once the renovation is complete.
That's it? All right. Okay. Any questions? Community? Anybody? Judy,
Hi,
how you doing?
I'm fine. How
Good
are
to see
you
you.
doing?
Good.
Judy Boyle, and I'm here with some concerns about accessibility to the handicap parking in the back field. First of all, I want to say, I think it's a great thing the board did, putting that in. Those of you who don't have somebody who's handicapped don't really realize how difficult it is for them to attend some of the functions. And putting that in has been a wonderful asset, particularly for my husband. Last spring, however, that being said, last spring when we came, we were fortunate that somebody else had come before us. We came to a middle school game, and the gate had evidently been locked and it had gotten open. And we realized then that there was some new procedures put in effect, and to the fact that it said that you needed to call the school office or the AD in order to have the gate unlocked. That's all well and good, except that when the games begin, the school office, generally there's nobody there, and the AD, number one, shouldn't have his phone number on a sign, not his personal number, really. And he also has responsibilities before a game, getting coaches, referees, all that stuff lined up. I was in email contact with Bob after that, and he had proposed some things, and I had counter-proposed. One of the things he proposed was giving people keys to the gate during a season. I personally didn't think that was a great idea. And the other thing was that you call ahead to the office if you're going to come. Well, my husband's case, we don't always know if he's going to feel up to coming. And it's usually a last-minute decision. Or conversely, if you're from another school district, you don't know to call the school office. You couldn't conceivably drive here from Pittsburgh and not be able to get in. Bob suggested, one of his other suggestions was leaving the gate open. The person driving would get out and open the gate, and then you drive through and he'd close the gate. Well, that's fine if somebody who's not handicapped is driving. But if the handicapped person's driving, in my husband's case, it would be very difficult for him to do that. So we tossed things back, and the end of it was that the board would probably be looking at it and would be coming up with some procedures. I kind of watched the minutes. I hadn't seen anything, so the beginning of the week I gave Judy a call. And basically the same scenarios were still in effect as far as she knew. My suggestion, and the board can do, of course, whatever they want, but I've noticed your sign out there says permitted parking. Well, permitted parking is different than handicap permitted parking. There are very specific laws and rules for handicapped. You have to have a handicap placard or a handicap plate. Otherwise, there are some penalties, and I believe, it can involve some fines. And permitted, people could say, well, I'm permitted to park there because I'm a ref. I'm permitted to park there because my kid is playing. So therefore, I'm entitled. Well, if it says handicap permitted parking, you have to be handicapped. It's pretty cut and dried. And I would just think that if we put a handicap permitted parking in the front and a handicap permitted parking sign at the actual entrance to the parking lot, that legally covers everything. The gate can be locked, and then a person can be assigned to open it, and a person can be assigned to lock it up after the game, if you want to keep it locked during the school day, to impede accessibility to it. And that should be the person, could be a custodian, it could be anybody. Mark could do it, or he could assign one of his crew to do it. Or it could be a teacher assigned, or a coach assigned, or somebody. And it would need to be done for middle school and high school games. I hadn't noticed any particular violations, except during homecoming. I saw people were tailgating up there, and I don't believe they were handicapped. I called my husband to see if he was coming, and he said he wasn't up to it, so that was a moot point, and it didn't matter. But there could have been other people that might have wanted to come, so I do think the signage would be wonderful. So that's why I'm here, because I know soccer season is about to begin. It's our grandson's last year playing, and we want to be able to come and see him. Or my husband wants to be able to come and see him. And I'm getting too old to tug his wheelchair down that driveway.
That's not easy. Thanks, Judy. So the first question I have is, what is it, to have a handicap space makes the most sense. Everybody knows what that sign means, everybody knows who can access that space. So I guess what we would want to do is find out what do we need to do as a district to make it ADA compliant, to meet the regulations that would be necessary, because I think it is important that the right people are using that. And to push a chair or to get somebody through that dirt path is not easy. Yep.
I think
I'd
there
just like to
was,
state something.
Mark will probably.
Yeah. Basically, the way it is right now, it's not ADA compliant, that's why we did the permitted parking.
Okay.
We wanted to have people have access, and it could be used, okay? And I think when we locked the gate and stuff like that, I think it was probably not the best one, kind of ill-conceived, okay? But in order to get it, we have to asphalt from there all the way in,
Yeah.
and that's a big price tag. Plus, we have to have signage, which signage is not that expensive.
Yeah.
But we have to have it drawn out, it has to be so many square feet per vehicle, and all these other things. So we kind of thought that, hey, if we just open it up for people, you know, they call it permitted parking versus handicap parking, people can get in, you know, and use it. I suggest that just when there's games, the gates open, and then we enforce when people go back there. In other words, if it's, you know, one of the refs, some will just tell the refs, please stop parking back here, this is for people.
So you
that
have to man the gate.
You have to, well, not really man it, but I think
Yeah.
once the word gets out, it'll be fun. Let's just enforce, I think it'll be fun.
Matt, yeah, I think on to piggyback on that, I think part of the issue that came with more people parking back there than it should have been was that people were telling them it was okay to, you know, regardless of who that might have been, said, oh, you
Yeah.
know, the refs show up, oh, we've got parking out back there, you can park there, and I don't know what meeting it was recently this spring, I brought this up because there needed to be some kind of solution, we spent the money for one reason, and that was to have, you know, someone like your husband be able to go back there with ease, and every game, there are people back there who don't need to use it, that I've noticed, every game I've been to in the spring and the fall, and that's why I raised the concern, and I think like the simplest solution is better signage. You know, how we word that signage, you know, we gotta figure out, but I know the issue was, we couldn't call it handicap parking without meeting some other requirements and like Mark said, a bigger price tag to do so.
And what
So
brought
what-
forth,
Sorry. I was gonna say,
what brought forth the locking of the gate was someone went out there with a car and did donuts on the
Yes.
field.
Yeah.
And that's why we locked the gate.
That-
That's what happened, and, because before it was just open.
I feel like we made the step to get access there, and maybe we need to commit to maybe going a little bit further with it. That all sounds great if you're local, but what happens if you drove from Colebrook or Pittsburgh and you parked in the regular parking lot and you walked all the way out there because it said permitted parking, but you didn't have a permit to park there, and you realize there's all this open space, and, you know, you just went through all this, you know, all the struggle to get back there, you know?
Can we notify the schools?
Yeah, I don't know. Brian?
Kind of along with what you're saying and what you're saying, if it has to be permitted, I understand that, and avoiding the handicap, because then it leads to, like you said, paving and stuff, but what if we just had, like, rearview mirror hangers that people like you could just have, because you're a community member,
I
and you
have
go to a bunch of
handicap.
things.
I have a
No,
handicap.
but this is a permit for parking on
Right.
Lin-Wood's spot. And then also have, so like people that would come all the time might just have them in their car, just like I have one to get access to the mountain club when there's events going on, I can drive up those roads, you know, I put it in my window, I can go through. And then have like a handful of them, or something that are like, just like you sign in as a guest to come walk into the school, like people could contact ahead of time and get one of these cards waiting for them, or a coach of that team, you know, our coach, say, competing with them, might have a handful of them, and as long as the word's out, they just pass it off, and that guy can, you know, deliver it to that person to utilize for their day or something.
Yeah,
I know it's like kinda complex, but I mean, if you you would really be only handing out the handful of the ones for the specific situations that someone's coming from out of town.
We could, the other.
And then the people like in town would have this thing, and it's just, you know, you hang it in your window next to the handicap thing, and then we know that you're permitted to be into this zone for whatever reason.
But who polices that during a game?
Who polices it?
Yeah, and like, if I stick one in my window, who's gonna come and say, you shouldn't have one?
Well, no, don't you have to like get it from somebody? I mean, I
Yeah.
understand, like,
I think,
I don't think they can just hand them out. I'm just,
yeah,
this is all in the last 3 minutes, so I kinda, you know, I know there's gonna be like tricks, like some kid's gonna go print one and park his car back there. But I'm just trying to think of like alternative ways, based on the idea of a window hanger for like a handicap car.
What if you just put your signage, instead of saying handicap parking permit only, you could say must have handicap placard or plate to park? That's not saying it's handicap parking only, it's just saying you have to have one of these in order to do this.
right.
And then that's simple.
I also think, I think that's an easy way to do it, but I also think we may wanna get some costs on what that, you know, what it is. Cause I think, you know, when you initially think like that, like, oh, this isn't a big deal, it won't cost us a lot of money. But when that stuff adds up as administrative costs, when people are getting paid X amount of dollars per hour to do things, and then we're looking at it and we're saying, well, we just spent, you know, $1,000 this week policing a gate. Do you know what I mean? Because of the manpower, I mean, when you first look at, I mean, I always look at that, I always think about that and what some of the things that we have administrators do. That there is a cost, even though it seems like there isn't, there is a cost, and it may be worthwhile at, you know, we got this far,
Right, like you
Why
said,
not
that was
make
the
it ADA
intention of the
compliant?
space, why not just finish
you know,
it?
put the
Yeah.
universal symbol that everybody can recognize out of town, in town, then we don't have to call schools and say, do you have anybody that's handicapped? How do they get the message out to that person that they need to call in advance, we gotta get a thing, then someone has to stand here, someone has to do this, it's costly, it is costly. I mean, I know it's gonna be expensive, but, you know, sometimes you just go, you gotta do it, you know? So I mean, I personally would like to see what that would,
Yeah.
just the cost, I mean, then we can make more of a decision, but we definitely need to do something to fix that.
And maybe until
In the
then,
interim.
yeah, until then, that's a good
What I will
idea,
do-
that sounds, that
Well, I like
For,
Judy's idea.
is I'll make sure the gate's open before we game,
Must have handicap.
okay?
Yeah, I mean,
I know that, to help you out, but, yeah.
But we have to help everybody that's in that situation too.
No, no,
Yeah, yeah.
good luck for everybody else.
We can do some communication of the schools, you know, as far as the ADs of the schools, just
Right.
kind of think, cause they're gonna know if they have certain folks that they know of that are coming
Coming
over.
down.
So we can do, in the meantime, you know, I think that, you know, the long-term
Yes.
look as far as the ADA
Right.
compliance piece, but I think in the meantime, cause obviously, we're not gonna get that done by Monday,
Right.
so we can, you know, kind of do
Well,
that.
most of the equipment's here.
It's a good point, it is a good point, it wouldn't take much. But I think having that piece of it where we're just kind of communicating with other schools right now and have, you know,
Yeah.
Mark can look at the gate being open and closed, you know,
Right.
game starts, gates open, game's over, gates closed, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think in the interim, common sense will work its way out. You know, I think leaving the gate open is fine, as long as we didn't have certain people on the premises just encouraging whoever to park back there. I think now that we, you know, get the information out to people who should be back there, who shouldn't be back there, it'll lessen, it'll work out over time. You know, as far as the people traveling from other schools to come here, even if we have that as a designated handicap parking space back there, they might not know that. You know,
Right.
They might park in our regular lot anyway
That's what
and
I'm-
find out after the fact. I mean,
Yeah.
even if we have all the signage in the world, so it's kind of a bonus when they realize that and then you know, move back there. And I know we don't wanna hire somebody to monitor that, and I obviously don't want to figure out whose duties are what, but as the athletic director usually serves as a game site manager as well. Their duty isn't, you know, once
Yeah,
the game starts, I mean, it was a different situation last 3 years where our athletic director was coaching as well. So he had a lot more going on, but if our athletic director is there and he notices people parking out there that shouldn't be, he can send them back the other way. Or, you know, if somebody asks them, you know, can we be parking back here? I mean, he could be a good resource for that, because he's gonna be there, he should be there on site. And, you know, I don't know if that falls under the official job description, but I know we've done that in the past of having a game site manager, you know, where the athletic director couldn't be at home basketball games. We pay somebody a nominal fee to serve as the game site manager.
And that can be communicated to whoever's doing the game, whether it's myself, whether it's the AD, whether it's, you know, whoever the designee is, and that can be communicated as part of it, just to take a look at, you know, you know, obviously there's gonna be folks who, you know, if they're asking to park there for, because they have you know, they have to for accessibility reasons, or we know that they're gonna be coming in as opposed to someone who's just pulling up because they want a better spot.
Right. I think the other, to make it more complicated too, is that serves as a footpath as well. And that was always kind of my concern, is as we started having teenagers bringing their cars back there, and then the event lets out, and they're going around this tight space with blind corners, and there's people walking. And that's something we've got to keep in mind as well. And let, you know, if we're gonna make this now a true paved path and saying this is for cars, what are we doing about the foot traffic? That's a very blind corner in there. Yeah.
Anybody else from the community? Thank you, Judy. No? All right. Are we doing non-public?
I don't have anything.
I mean, I had things connected to the cell phone policy that I'd like to speak about in public.
I'd like to call the board to go into non-public.
Yes. Yes.
I'm good.
All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thanks, Aaron. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstain. We are adjourned.